Hi, welcome to Beef Cattle Institute's Ask the Experts, where our experts will answer your questions. Glad to have two experts with me today, Dr. Brian Lubers
Morning, Brad.
and Dr. Bob Larson.
Good morning.
So we're happy to have these guys here to answer your questions. If you have a question, you can send us one in to bci@ksu.edu. And today's question, which we'll jump into, after you give your response, you get up to 10 points for each answer. So today's question comes from a listener, and there's actually two parts, so I'm going to divide it into parts. If we're looking at revising or building a new cattle handling facility, the first part of the question is, what type of alley should I put in, a closed-sided alley or an open-sided alley? Brian, I'll go to you first.
So I would prefer open, and I think that maybe goes against the way we've built in the past. But there's some research out there that shows that cattle will move better through that open facility. Now, you can't just have an open facility. There are other aspects of that go along with it. But the open-sided facility, that you can actually get them to move better through that when they can see clearly where they are going, follow the leader cow, those things. So I'll say open-sided is my preference.
Okay. Bob?
Well, I think there is a place for either one, but my mind immediately went to, so if I had a veterinary clinic where I've got a lot of activity going on, and I've got a wide variety of cattle type, as in how wild they are, how much they're used to people. In my veterinary clinic, I think I'd really like the solid-sided, because I think some of the things that distract cattle with the open-sided is if there are vehicles moving around, people moving around, and those types of things. And at my vet clinic, that's likely. And if maybe at your ranch, that's also possible. You got a lot of farming going on, a lot of other things. Then I think there's a place for solid-sided to, if you've got a distraction-rich environment or cattle that are particularly difficult to handle from a wild, they're wild. And so I think the solid side is a little safer for the cattle and safer for the humans. So I think there's a place for both. But as a veterinarian, I might go with, at my clinic, the solid-sided.
Okay. So Bob has 8. Brian, you have 7. The distraction-rich environment, just that phrasing, that got a point right there in itself.
There you go.
Now, how about as you're loading into the alley, you can either use a tub, which is pretty traditional. The half circle, it's got a swing gate that goes through, or you can use a bud box, which is basically a square area where you walk the cattle in and then walk them back up to the alley. I'm going to ask Bob first on this one. What's your preference?
Again, I think there's a place for both. My opinion is that a bud box has some real advantages, but it takes higher trained people that are really used to the bud box, really used to handling cattle. Whereas my tub allows me to maybe use slightly less trained people, but the people still need to be trained. But I think the beauty of the solid-sided and the tubs is that with a little bit of training, I can train somebody to really help me move cattle through.
Ryan?
So which one did he answer? Because he said both.
He did say both.
Okay. So which one? So I'll
you pick
say,
which one you want.
No, so I think he said bud box. So I'll say tub. And I think in a distraction-rich environment, that has nothing to do with my answer, but I wanted the point. So I think Bob is right. He said that the bud box takes a little more training. I think the tub actually takes as much training. If you want to use it properly, I do think the one advantage, the one thing, if you can do one thing in a tub, if you don't overfill it, you can use it correctly, and you can manage a tub very well. And then the thing about tub systems are, if you're building a new system, probably go with the bud box. Unfortunately, most people have tub systems, right? That's what was been in place. So I think a tub system can work very, very well, with the one caveat that if you don't overfill it, it'll be just fine.
Absolutely. And I think that is an excellent point, Brian. So how you use the system is just as important as the type of system. So the facilities are not going to solve if we have cattle handling problems. So quickly, one cattle handling tip. Bob?
Pick the right people. Some people are difficult to train. I would even say impossible to train. And so you send them off on an errand to town while you're working cattle. So have the right people that are just good cattle handling people.
This is why you send me to town a lot.
All the time.
Budget more than enough time. because and I think that's kind of where Bob was going. Cattle handling is really about patience. So if you're not pressed for time, you'll do it much better.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. Brian ended up with 9. Bob, he surpassed you based on his answer of don't overfill the tub or the bud box.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Good
joining
advice.
us. If you have other questions, you can send us an email at bci@ksu.edu.